As the fetal monitor beeped the final seconds of my old life away, I saw my husband Mark ignoring my screams to text his ex, Vanessa. My marriage wasn't just cracked, it was destroyed between contractions, right there under the cold, sterile lights. And in that moment of absolute clarity, I smiled. I pushed the call button, and when the nurse leaned in, I didn't ask for more ice chips, I asked her to bar my husband from the room and hand me the birth certificate paperwork. She glanced at his phone, then back at me, her eyes turning to steel as she whispered, "Good. He has no idea I'm Vanessa's older sister." You won't believe the name I wrote down. The beep of the fetal heart monitor is supposed to be a comfort. A steady, rhythmic thump-thump-thump that says I am here, I am strong, I am coming. But tonight, it's a metronome counting down the seconds of my life as I knew it. Each beat is a hammer blow against the thinning wall of my reality. The pain is a white-hot tide, pulling me under, a fire that starts in the base of my spine and consumes my entire being. I grip the cold metal rail of the hospital bed, my knuckles bloodless. Another wave crests, and a sound I don't recognize, tears from my own throat. "Breathe, Clara. Just like we practiced. In through the nose, out through the mouth." Mark's voice is a smooth, placid stone skipping across the surface of my agony. It doesn't sink in. It doesn't connect. I turn my head on the damp pillow, my hair plastered to my forehead with sweat, and search for his eyes. I need to anchor myself to him. He is my husband, the man I chose, the man who co-created the life that is currently trying to split me in two. I need to see the love, the fear, the shared journey in his gaze. But his gaze isn't on me. It's cast down, his face illuminated by a cold, familiar blue light. His iPhone. He's holding my left hand, but it's a prop. His fingers are limp, a dead weight in my grasp. All his attention, all his focus, is on the small glass rectangle in his other hand. His thumb is moving. A quick, practiced swipe. Then tap, tap, tap. A flicker of a name at the top of the screen, a name I know, a name that has been a ghost in the corners of our marriage for 6 years. Vanessa. The world shrinks. The bright, sterile lights of the delivery room, the kind-faced nurse adjusting my drip, the reassuring beep of the monitor, it all fades to a distant hum. There is only the blue light on my husband's face and the name of his ex-girlfriend. He is texting her. Now. While I am here, ripped open and vulnerable, in the most primal moment of my life, he is texting another woman. I think back to 2 years ago, to the day I handed him the check. It was for $72,431.58. The exact amount left from my grandmother's inheritance after we'd used the rest to pay off his staggering credit card debt he'd sworn was from a failed business partnership before we met. "This is it, Mark," I had told him, my hand shaking slightly as I passed him the cashier's check. "This is for your app. Your dream. This is our future." He had kissed me, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "Clara, you're investing in us," he'd whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I will make you so proud. I will build us an empire." The app, a social media aggregator for niche hobbies, never launched. The money vanished into a black hole of development costs and server fees and unforeseen marketing expenses. I never questioned it. I believed in him. I chose to. I worked overtime as a project manager, my salary covering our mortgage, our bills, his life, while he pivoted his strategy. I told myself that this was what love was: sacrifice, belief, unwavering support. Another contraction seizes me, a colossal, crushing force. I squeeze his hand with all the strength I have left, a desperate, silent plea. Look at me. Please, just look at me. "Shoo, babe, you're doing great," he murmurs, his eyes still glued to the screen. He pats my hand absently, a gesture one might give a fussy dog. He thinks I'm too far gone in the pain to notice. He thinks the animal part of my brain has taken over, that the human, thinking, feeling Clara is offline. He is wrong. I have never been more lucid. The physical pain is an amplifier, making the emotional betrayal so sharp, so exquisitely painful, it's a wonder I'm still conscious. He's texting, I whisper, the words catching in my throat, tasting like acid. I'm not even sure I said them aloud, but the nurse, a woman with tired, compassionate eyes and a name tag that reads Sarah, RN, glances from my face to Mark's. Her professional mask is perfect, but I see it. A fractional tightening of her jaw. A flicker of something hard and cold in her eyes before it's replaced by a deep, profound sympathy. It's a look that says, I see you. I believe you. She ignores Mark completely, stepping into my line of sight, blocking him out. She places a cool, firm hand on my shoulder. Her touch is solid, real. Focus on me, Clara, she says, her voice a lifeline in the storm. It's calm but insistent. Forget everything else. It's just you and your baby now. You are so much stronger than you think. Breathe with me. Come on. I obey. I drag in a ragged breath, my gaze locked on hers. She is right. There is no one else here for me. The man I married checked out of this room and this marriage, minutes ago. He is just a warm body in a chair, a ghost haunting the most important day of my life. The betrayal fuels a new kind of energy. It's not strength. It's fury. A cold, clean fury that burns away the pain and the fear. The doctor's voice cuts through. Okay, Clara, I see the head. On this next contraction, I need a big push. A really big one. You can do this. I bear down, but I am not pushing for Mark. I am not pushing for the family I thought we were building. I am pushing for me. I am pushing for this child, this innocent life that deserves a mother who is a warrior, not a doormat. I am pushing to get this over with, to get to the other side of this moment, to a place where I can begin to understand the magnitude of what has just happened. When our daughter, Lily, is finally born, a mess of vernix and blood and life, her first cry a raw, powerful declaration of her existence, the room erupts in a performance of joy. Mark is suddenly animated, a puppet whose strings have been yanked. Oh my God, Clara. She's perfect. You did it. You were incredible. He leans in to kiss me, but I turn my head so his lips land on my cheek. His kiss feels like ash. His praise rings hollow, a cruel parody of the support he should have given me. He cuts the cord with a flourish, posing for the photo I know he'll post on social media with a caption about the strongest woman I know. The hypocrisy is so vast, so breathtaking, I feel dizzy. He holds Lily, his face a mask of paternal adoration. My little girl, he coos. Daddy's here. A quiet, hysterical laugh bubbles in my chest. Daddy's here. Yes, he is. Physically present, emotionally and spiritually in another woman's inbox. I watch him, and I feel nothing. The love I had for him, a vast and resilient thing I had nurtured for years, died on this bed. It bled out with the pain and the effort, leaving behind a cold, empty space. I look at him holding my daughter, and all I see is a stranger. A very convincing actor playing the part of a devoted husband and father. Later, in the quiet of the recovery room, the adrenaline has faded, leaving behind a bone-deep exhaustion and a loneliness so profound it feels like a physical weight on my chest. Lily is asleep in a clear plastic bassinet beside my bed. She is a perfect, tiny miracle. Her little chest rises and falls, her rosebud mouth works in a suckling motion as she dreams. I am a mother. The thought should be pure joy, but it's tangled with a grief so sharp it steals my breath. I am a mother, and I have never felt more abandoned. Mark is asleep in the uncomfortable-looking visitor's chair, his head lolled back, a soft snore escaping his lips. His phone is on the small table beside him, screen down. It looks like a venomous creature, dormant for now, but ready to strike. I stare at it, my heart hammering. How long has this been going on? The ease with which he was texting, the lack of any attempt to hide it. This wasn't a new transgression. This was a habit. A routine. Vanessa. Was he with her when I was at home, battling morning sickness and swollen ankles? Was he messaging her while I was painstakingly painting the nursery, choosing the softest shades of yellow and gray? Was the $72,431.58 from my grandmother, the money that was meant for our future, funding his dates with her? The questions spiral, each one more toxic than the last. The foundation of my world has been reduced to rubble, and I am left standing in the ruins, holding my newborn child. The next morning, Mark goes down to the hospital cafeteria to grab a decent coffee and make some calls to the family. The relief I feel when the door clicks shut behind him is immediate and overwhelming. I can finally breathe. I watch Lily sleeping, her tiny fingers curled around mine, and I make a silent promise to her. I will protect you. I will not let you grow up in a house built on lies. I will not let you learn about love from a man who is incapable of it. There's a soft knock on the door. It opens, and Nurse Sarah steps inside, closing it gently behind her. She's not in her scrubs anymore but in civilian clothes, jeans, and a simple gray sweater. Her shift must be over. "Clara," she says, her voice low and serious. "I hope I'm not intruding. Can we talk for a moment?" I just nod, my throat too tight to form words. I'm so tired. Tired of the pain, tired of the pretense, tired of the crushing weight in my chest. She pulls the visitor's chair closer to my bed, the one Mark just vacated. She doesn't sit right away. She stands there, her hands clasped in front of her, her expression a mixture of pity and a resolve I can't quite place. "I saw his phone in the delivery room yesterday," she begins, her gaze direct and unwavering. The words hang in the air, a gift of validation. "I want you to know that you aren't crazy. You didn't imagine it. What you saw was real." The tears I've been holding back finally spill over, hot and silent. It's one thing to know you've been betrayed, it's another to have someone else bear witness to it, to confirm that your reality is, in fact, reality. It's a small, solid piece of ground in an earthquake. "Who is she?" I whisper, the name a bitter taste on my tongue. Why then?" In that moment? Sarah takes a deep, steadying breath, and the look in her eyes shifts. The professional sympathy is gone, replaced by something older, deeper. Something personal. She finally sits down, leaning forward, her hands on her knees. The air in the room suddenly feels heavy, charged. "Her name is Vanessa," Sarah says, her voice trembling almost imperceptibly with a long-held anger. "And she's my sister." The air leaves my lungs in a single, silent gasp. The beep of the heart monitor, the distant chatter in the hallway, the hum of the hospital lights, it all vanishes. There is only Sarah's face, her words echoing in the sudden, roaring silence of my mind. My sister. It's not a random affair. It's not a simple mistake. It's a connection. A history. A web, and I have just realized I am not the only one caught in it. My betrayal is not unique. It's a sequel. The silence in the room was a physical entity, a thick, suffocating blanket. It pressed down on my chest, making it impossible to draw a full breath. Sarah's words, my sister reverberated not in my ears, but in my bones, rearranging the very structure of my understanding. This wasn't a simple act of infidelity. It was a story with a prequel, a pathology with a history. I was the latest chapter in a book I never knew I was reading. How? I finally managed, the word a dry rasp. How is that possible? Sarah's expression was etched with a decade of grief and fury. Mark has a type, Clara. He seeks out women who are givers. Women who are strong, but who pour that strength into others instead of themselves. He found that in Vanessa, and he found it in you. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, as if the walls themselves were agents of Mark's. My sister, she's not weak. But he made her believe she was. He met her when she was just starting her graphic design business. He was charming, supportive. He called himself her biggest fan. A cold dread, sharp and specific, began to snake its way up my spine. It was the same script. The same lines he had used on me when I was trying to get my photography business off the ground. Asterisk, you're the most talented person I know. Let me help you. Let me invest in you. He invested in her business, Sarah continued, her eyes locking onto mine, confirming my silent fear. He encouraged her to take out a huge loan to expand, with him as a cosigner to show his faith. He became enmeshed in her finances, her contacts, her confidence. And once he had control, once she was completely dependent on him, he started to pull away. The late nights at the office. The business trips that didn't quite add up. He'd pick fights, make her feel crazy for questioning him, and then swoop back in with some grand romantic gesture. He kept her on a roller coaster, so dizzy she couldn't see which way was up. The heart monitor beside me beeped a steady, indifferent rhythm, a counterpoint to the frantic chaos in my own chest. What happened to her? To the business? A tear finally escaped Sarah's eye, tracing a path through her weary frustration. He left her. The day after her father's funeral. He said he couldn't handle her grief, that it was too much. He cleaned out their joint account and vanished. The loan defaulted. The business collapsed. He left her with nothing but debt and the belief that she was impossible to love. It took her years to even begin to piece herself back together. He broke her, Clara. Systematically. The image of Mark, cooing over our newborn daughter just hours ago, flashed in my mind. The man who had wept with joy, who had told me I was his entire world. It was all a performance. A meticulously crafted lie, perfected through practice. My betrayal wasn't a moment of weakness in the delivery room, it was the culmination of a long and calculated deception. The texting wasn't the crime, it was just the first piece of evidence I'd managed to see. Why is he texting her now? I whispered, the question tasting like poison. Because that's what he does, Sarah said, her voice hard as flint. When he's about to reach a new milestone, a new pinnacle of his perfect life, a new wife, a new baby, he reaches back to twist the knife one more time. To remind his last victim what she lost. To feed his ego. He needs to know he can still control her, that she's still on the hook. It's not about love, or even lust. It's about power. A new feeling began to bloom in the hollow space where my heart used to be. It was cold and sharp and utterly clear. It was rage. Not the hot, messy rage of a scorned wife, but the glacial, focused fury of a survivor. Of a mother. I need to see it, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. The proof. You said he ruined her financially. There must be records. Paperwork. Sarah nodded slowly, a flicker of grim admiration in her eyes. There is. Vanessa kept everything, locked away in a box. She couldn't bear to look at it, but she couldn't bring herself to throw it away. Loan agreements, bank statements. I think some of them even have his signature forged on them. The door to the room clicked open. Mark walked in, holding 2 cups of coffee, a beaming, sleep-rumpled smile on his face. Morning, sunshine, he chirped, his eyes crinkling. And Sarah, you're here early. Thanks again for everything yesterday. You were amazing. The sheer audacity of it stole my breath. He stood there, thanking the sister of the woman he was texting while I was in agony, the woman whose life he had systematically dismantled. Sarah's professional mask snapped back into place so perfectly it was terrifying. Just checking in on my favorite new mom, she said, her tone light and airy. Clara, you rest up. I'll be back to check your vitals in a bit. She gave my foot a small, imperceptible squeeze before she turned to leave. A signal. Asterisk, stay strong. Mark set a coffee on my bedside table. Heard from your parents. They're ecstatic. They're driving down tomorrow. He leaned in to kiss me, and I had to fight every instinct to recoil. I let his lips touch my cheek, they felt like ice. That's great, I said, my voice a stranger's. The drive home was a study in surreal tension. I held Lily, my tiny, perfect daughter, her warmth a fragile shield against the cold void sitting in the driver's seat. Mark chattered on about baby-proofing the house, about opening a college fund, about our future. Every word was a lie, a piece of a carefully constructed fantasy world he expected me to inhabit. The house, which I had so lovingly decorated, now felt alien. The photos of us on the mantelpiece, smiling in Paris, laughing on a beach, looked like pictures of strangers. They were props in his play, and I had been his unwitting co-star. That night, I waited. I listened to his breathing deepen into the sound, even snores of a man with no conscience. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the frantic beating of my own heart. Lily was asleep in her bassinet beside me, her tiny chest rising and falling in blissful ignorance. I looked at her face, so new and full of promise, and the rage solidified into a diamond-hard resolve. He will not do to you what he did to her. He will not even have the chance. Slipping out of bed, I crept downstairs to his office. The room I had always seen as his sanctuary now felt like a dragon's hoard, filled with secrets and stolen treasures. My hands trembled as I sat in his leather chair, the scent of his cologne hanging in the air, making me nauseous. I turned on his computer. Password protected, of course. Lily Grace 05. Our daughter's name and the month she was born. The arrogance of it, using this new, pure thing to protect his filth. I wasn't a hacker. I was just a wife. But Sarah's words had given me a map. I didn't look for emails or texts. I looked for money. I logged into our joint bank account. It looked normal enough, healthy even. But then I started navigating the labyrinth of his computer files. Tucked away in a folder innocuously labeled Archived Projects was another folder labeled V_assets. My blood ran cold. Inside was a complete shadow life. Scans of credit card statements I'd never seen, with charges for hotels in cities he'd never claimed to visit, for jewelry I'd never received. And then I found it. A scanned copy of a business loan agreement for Vibrant Designs Incorporated. The borrower was Vanessa Miller. The cosigner was Mark Peterson. And beneath it, another document, a formal letter from a bank, dated 2 years later, detailing the default and holding both parties liable for the full amount of $200,000. My breath hitched. I scrolled further, my fingers flying across the trackpad. I found a subfolder. Repayments. It contained screenshots of wire transfers. Small amounts, sent every few months from an account I didn't recognize to an account belonging to Vanessa. It wasn't a gesture of guilt. It was a leash. Just enough money to keep her from taking legal action, just enough to remind her that he still held power over her. It was the financial equivalent of the texts he sent her. A prod. A twist of the knife. But the final file was the worst. It was a single, scanned page. A legal document. It was a prenuptial agreement. Our prenup. I remembered signing it. Mark had presented it as a formality, a way to protect my small photography business from his significant assets. His lawyer had been smooth, reassuring. My own lawyer, a friend of a friend, had given it a cursory glance and said it looked standard. But reading it now, with new eyes, I saw the trap. In the event of a divorce initiated due to infidelity, all jointly held assets, including the house, would revert to him. A small clause, buried in legalese, designed to punish the person who discovered the affair. He had planned this. He had been planning his escape route from our marriage before it had even begun. He hadn't just cheated. He had built a fortress of lies around himself, brick by brick, and dared me to try and tear it down, knowing I would be the one left in the rubble. My phone felt heavy in my hand as I dialed Sarah's number. It was 3 in the morning. she answered on the first ring. He planned it, I whispered, my voice breaking. He planned all of it. The prenup, it's a trap. There was a pause on the other end, followed by a deep, weary sigh. I was afraid of that. Clara, you need to be smart. You can't just confront him. I know, I said, looking at the evidence glowing on the screen. I'm not going to confront him. I'm going to dismantle him. Can you ask Vanessa if she'll meet me? All three of us. She needs to see this. We need to do this together. 2 days later, I sat in a quiet corner of a nondescript coffee shop halfway between my house and Sarah's. Lily was asleep in her carrier at my feet. I had a manila envelope on the table in front of me, filled with the printouts from Mark's computer. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear. Sarah arrived first, giving me a supportive nod. A moment later, another woman appeared in the doorway, hesitant, her shoulders hunched as if expecting a blow. Vanessa. She looked older than I'd imagined, not in years, but in spirit. There were faint lines of exhaustion around her kind eyes, the same eyes as her sister's. She looked at me, then at the baby carrier, and a wave of profound sadness washed over her face. Hi, she said, her voice barely audible. Hi, Vanessa, I replied, my own voice gentle. Thank you for coming. Please, sit. She slid into the booth opposite me, her gaze fixed on the tabletop. Sarah sat beside her, a protective presence. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken pain, rivalry, and regret. I know this is hard, I began, pushing the envelope across the table. And I need you to know, I am not angry with you. None of this is your fault. Vanessa's head snapped up, her eyes wide with surprise. A single tear rolled down her cheek. He told me, he said you knew about us from the beginning. That you were fine with it. That you had an arrangement. The lie was so audacious, so cruel, it was almost brilliant. He was trying to poison us against each other from the start. He lied, Vanessa. He lies about everything. Her hands trembled as she opened the envelope. She pulled out the loan agreement, her breath catching in a sob. She stared at the forged signature, then the default notice. She saw the statements for the secret credit cards, the wire transfers. Her sister pointed to the prenup, explaining the clause. We sat there for over an hour, piecing together the full, ugly mosaic of Mark's life. Vanessa filled in the emotional blanks, her stories of his gaslighting and manipulation mirroring my own recent experiences. She spoke of his charm, his ability to make you feel like the only person in the world, and the terrifying speed with which he could turn it off, leaving you in a cold, confusing darkness. I saw my own story in hers. I saw my future if I didn't act. As she spoke, I saw the shame in her eyes slowly being replaced by the same cold anger that now lived in me. She wasn't just a victim anymore. She was a witness. He has to be stopped, Vanessa whispered, her hand resting on the pile of papers. He can't be allowed to do this to someone else. He won't be, I said, my voice ringing with a certainty that surprised even me. I looked at Sarah, then at Vanessa. We were not rivals. We were not a wife and an ex-mistress. We were survivors of the same predator, united by his deceit. A strange, fierce, and unbreakable bond was forming between us in the sterile quiet of that coffee shop. That evening, I walked back into my house. The theatrical set. Mark was in the living room, bouncing a fussy Lily in his arms, playing the part of the doting father to perfection. He smiled at me as I entered. Hey, you were gone a while. Everything okay? He asked, his voice laced with that familiar, false concern. I took the baby from him, my fingers brushing his, and felt nothing. I settled Lily in her bassinet, stroking her soft cheek. I stood there for a long moment, looking down at my daughter, the reason for everything I was about to do. I straightened up, my spine rigid, my resolve absolute. I turned to face him. The performance was over. It was time to burn the set to the ground. Mark, I said, my voice perfectly level, devoid of any emotion but a chilling finality. Sit down. We need to talk. Mark's smile faltered, a hairline crack in his porcelain mask. He sat, but it was the hesitant, placating motion of a man dealing with a hysterical woman. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his expression a carefully crafted masterpiece of concern. Clara, honey, you've been through the ringer. The birth, the hormones, it's a lot. Whatever this is, we can work through it. We're a family. The word family hung in the air, a profanity. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. My quiet was heavier than any shout. I met with Vanessa today, I said. The crack in his mask splintered, shattering the entire facade. His face, for a split second, was naked. I saw not guilt, but pure, cornered animal fear. Then, just as quickly, the mask was reassembled, albeit clumsily this time. He scoffed, a hollow, rattling sound. Vanessa? What are you talking about? You're not making any sense. Don't, I said, the single word a blade that cut him off. Don't you dare try to gaslight me. Not anymore. I'm not the woman you married, Mark. You killed her in that delivery room. The woman standing here now sees you for exactly what you are. I walked over to the pristine designer bookshelf, the one he'd insisted on, filled with books he'd never read. From behind a leather-bound volume of unread Shakespeare, I pulled out the thick manila folder Vanessa had given me. I let it drop onto the glass coffee table between us. The sound was a verdict. He stared at the folder as if it were a snake. Her sister, Sarah, was my nurse, I continued, my voice a monotone narration of his downfall. She saw you. She knew the look on my face because she'd seen it on her own sister's. She gave me Vanessa's number. We met for coffee. It was very civilized. She told me everything. And she gave me documentation. He finally looked up from the folder, his eyes wide with a frantic, desperate energy. She's a liar. She's always been unstable, Clara, you know that. She's trying to ruin our lives because she's jealous. Is she? I asked, my tone laced with a pity that I could see was more painful to him than rage. I tapped the folder. Because this doesn't look like jealousy. It looks like a playbook. Emails you sent her, promising to leave me. Text messages from 3 years ago, nearly identical to the ones you were sending her while I was pushing our daughter into the world. Bank statements showing the money you loaned her and never paid back. Is that jealousy, Mark? Or is it just your pattern? He lunged for the folder, but my hand was on it first, pressing down. No. You don't get to destroy the evidence this time. His composure finally crumbled completely. The charming, doting husband vanished, replaced by a sniveling, pathetic stranger. Tears welled in his eyes, but they were for himself. I had never seen anything so transparent. Clara, please, he whimpered, his voice cracking. It was a mistake. A stupid, terrible mistake. I was weak. But I love you. I love you and Lily. This is our home. Our family. Don't throw it all away for her lies. My love for you died on a hospital bed while you were tending to your ego, I said, my voice still chillingly calm. And this? This isn't a home. It's a stage. And you're a very convincing actor. But the show is over. I leaned in, my face just a few feet from his. But you're right about one thing. This isn't just about Vanessa. It's about me, too. I walked back to the bookshelf and retrieved a second folder, this one my own. I'd spent the hours after meeting Vanessa not just simmering in rage, but logging into our online accounts. Every single one. You see, after I learned what kind of man you are, I started to wonder what else you were capable of. I opened my folder and spread the papers next to the first one. Bank statements. Credit card bills. A loan application. Funny, isn't it? how you took out a second mortgage on this house 6 months ago. You must have been very busy, because I don't remember signing any papers." His face went from pale to ashen. The blood drained from it so completely he looked like a corpse. This was it. This was the foundation of his entire fraudulent life. Not the women, but the money that allowed him to build the sets. "And this credit card," I continued, tapping a statement with a 5-figure balance. "The one you opened in my name right after we got married. For business expenses, you said. So many expensive dinners. So many hotel rooms. Were you wooing clients, Mark? Or were you funding your addictions?" He was silent. There were no more words, no more excuses. I had taken away his script, his props, his stage. All that was left was the hollow man in the middle of the empty set. "You didn't just betray me," I whispered, the finality of it all settling into my bones. "You tried to ruin me. You were willing to saddle your own daughter, with a mountain of debt built on your lies, just to keep your pathetic little game going. You didn't just cheat on me. You committed fraud. Against me. Against the bank. That's not a mistake, Mark. That's a crime." I stood up straight, my spine a rod of steel. All the pain, the doubt, the shame, it had been burned away, leaving behind only a cold, clear certainty. I looked at him, truly looked at him, and felt nothing. Not love, not hate. Just a profound, empty distance. He was a problem to be solved. A mess to be cleaned up. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," I said. "Sarah's recommendation. She's very good. She called your situation a predator's playbook. She's already started the proceedings. You will be hearing from her. As for us, we are done. I want you to pack a bag with whatever you need for the night. And then I want you to get out of my house." He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing silently, like a fish gasping for air. "Your house," he finally managed to choke out. "Yes," I said. "My parents paid the down payment. The lawyer seems to think that, given the fraudulent second mortgage you took out entirely on your own, the court will see things my way. Now get out." He didn't move, just sat there, broken. I walked over to the bassinet and gently lifted my sleeping daughter into my arms. Her warmth, her innocent weight, was the only real thing in the room. "If you are not out of this house in 10 minutes, I said, not even looking at him, my eyes fixed on Lily's perfect face, "I will call the police. I will show them the forged loan documents, and I will tell them I am afraid for my safety and the safety of my child. And believe me, Mark, they will believe me." That was what finally did it. The threat of public, official ruin. He staggered to his feet and, without another word, stumbled towards the bedroom. I stood there, rocking my daughter, listening to the sounds of him hastily throwing things into a suitcase. The sound of drawers opening and closing. The sound of his world ending. When he walked past me to the front door, he paused. He looked at Lily, a flicker of something, regret? Self-pity? In his eyes. "Can I?" "No," I said. "You forfeited that right." He flinched as if I'd slapped him. Then he was gone. The click of the front door shutting was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. The set was dark. The performance was over. I sank onto the sofa, pulled Lily close to my chest, and for the first time since her birth, I wept. Not tears of sorrow or betrayal, but of pure, unadulterated relief. The air in the house was already starting to feel cleaner. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal strategy and emotional excavation. Mark, true to form, tried to fight back, hiring a shark of a lawyer who attempted to paint me as an unstable, vindictive new mother. But it was no use. Our lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Eleanor, dismantled his case with surgical precision. The 2 folders became our arsenal. Vanessa sat beside me in Eleanor's office, calm and articulate, providing a sworn affidavit that corroborated my story and established Mark's long-standing pattern of deceit and financial manipulation. Sarah was there too, a quiet pillar of support, holding my hand when Eleanor detailed the extent of the forged debts. We were a united front, and our combined truth was irrefutable. Mark's house of cards collapsed under its own weight. Faced with overwhelming evidence of fraud, his lawyer quickly advised him to settle. He signed over the house, took responsibility for all the debt he'd accrued, and agreed to supervised visitation with Lily, his reputation in the community he'd so carefully cultivated now in tatters. He was a ghost, a cautionary tale whispered at dinner parties he was no longer invited to. We sold the house, the theatrical set. Watching the movers carry out the furniture felt like an exorcism. With the proceeds, after paying off the fraudulent mortgage, I found a small, sun-drenched apartment in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood. It was half the size of the old house and 1,000 times more of a home. 1 year later, the late afternoon sun streamed through the large living room window, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. The room was filled with the scent of brewing coffee and the sweet smell of baby powder. A colorful playmat was strewn with toys, and in the center of it sat Lily, now a determined crawler, babbling happily at a block in her hand. There was a knock on the door. I opened it to find Sarah and Vanessa, their arms full of bags from a local bakery. They didn't feel like guests anymore. They felt like family. "We come bearing carbs," Vanessa announced with a grin, placing a box of pastries on the small kitchen table. Her smile was genuine now, reaching her eyes. The shame I'd seen in the coffee shop was gone, replaced by a confident peace. She'd started her own graphic design business, freed from the emotional and financial shadow Mark had cast over her for years. "I hope you're hungry," Sarah added, already pouring 3 mugs of coffee. "And we have news." We sat at the table, Lily crawling over to rest her head on my knee. The 3 of us watched her, a shared, silent acknowledgement of the tiny person who had inadvertently brought us all together. "My promotion came through," Sarah said, her eyes shining. "Head nurse of the maternity ward." "Sarah," I gasped, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. "That's amazing. You deserve it more than anyone." "It gets better," Vanessa chimed in, her voice brimming with excitement. "The hospital is launching a new support initiative. A peer counseling program for women who've experienced perinatal trauma. Not just medical, but emotional. Betrayal, postpartum depression, everything. And they've asked Sarah to lead it." I looked at Sarah, my heart swelling with pride for this woman who had been a stranger a year ago. She had turned her quiet strength and deep empathy into something that would help countless other women. She had taken the pain Mark inflicted on her family and transformed it into healing. "And," Vanessa added, looking at me, "we were thinking, once it's up and running, maybe you could talk to them. Share your story. When you're ready." I looked around my small, bright apartment. At my happy, thriving daughter. At these 2 incredible women who were the scaffolding of my new life. A year ago, I was a victim in a sterile hospital room. Now, I was a survivor in a home I had built myself. The thought of telling my story didn't fill me with dread. It filled me with purpose. "I'd like that," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I really would." We sat for a long time, drinking coffee, eating pastries, and watching Lily discover the joy of stacking one block on top of another. We talked about work, about dating, about the future. We didn't talk about Mark. There was nothing left to say. He was a prologue to a much better story. Later, after they had gone, I stood by the window, rocking a sleepy Lily in my arms. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. I thought about the bonds that are supposed to be unbreakable, marriage vows sworn before God, the trust between partners. And I thought about the bonds that truly are unbreakable, the ones forged in fire, built on shared truth and fierce, mutual support. The bond between survivors. The one between us. I kissed Lily's forehead, breathing in her scent. I hadn't just saved myself. We had saved each other. We had burned the set to the ground, and on the ashes, we had built something real, something true, something that would last. A new kind of family. And it was beautiful.